Hi and welcome back to Like Maria from Cambridge. Today I'm going to talk to you about Imtiaz Dharker's poem Tissue. This will be particularly for the GCSE specification from AQA, the Power and Conflict cluster. So this poem has a reputation of being quite a tricky one. I think actually when you look into it, there are quite simple ways of making it very easy to understand and a very poignant, powerful, important poem. And if we're placing it in power and conflict, I think we definitely should consider the power of words, the power of shaping a narrative and a life, and the power of paper, books, and human people. So that's the kind of themes that I'm going to be talking about. So first of all, in terms of poetry, I think this poem hits quite a philosophical tone. From the very first line, paper that lets the light shine through. This is a philosophical statement, thinking about paper letting light shine through. It's not what paper is usually made of, and the light shining is from the semantic field of religion and philosophy, to shine a light on something. So already we're engaged with a thoughtful, ponderous poem that is going to explore philosophical and thoughtful ideas about life. In the third line is what could alter things. Now straight away we're thinking about important books that alter things, the way paper can alter things because people write things on it, and the way it has altered the world. I know now that we're progressing to a paperless society, but it's only through that period where we used paper to write things on that we can then progress. And then there's that lovely line, paper thinned by age or touching. The idea that she's developing here, the paper of used books, well-used books, like the Quran, where sometimes people write birth dates and things in the back of the book, like in family Bibles and things. The paper in those books is tissue thin, very delicate. And there, in that first stanza, of course, there's a link to the last stanza, where she refers again to paper smoothed and stroked and thinned to be transparent. So this is a poem that links the beginning and the end. The beginning, she's talking about paper being smoothed and stroked, but at the end she's actually talking about skin that can be seen as paper thin and perhaps has been smoothed and stroked in a very delicate and perhaps loving way. So in terms of structure, we have, I think, a tripartite structure here. We have the first three stanzas, the second three stanzas, and then the last three stanzas. And they're clearly divided by the way the poet is talking. In the first three stanzas, up till line 12, we have talking about paper and its tactile nature and how it's been used for perhaps photographs with that sepia reference, and its height and weight. So the substance of paper in the first three stanzas. In the second three stanzas, we then look at the things that paper does for us. Buildings, maps, slips from grocery shops and receipts she's talking about. Paper protects us like buildings. It could be a protection. It gives us direction like maps do. And it gives us the possibility of buying and selling and kind of bartering and exchanging goods and being a developed humanity and being a developed community. So these are three things from the human world that paper could be, she says, if buildings were paper, if perhaps things would be better. Perhaps this is an ecological statement even about how buildings are too concrete. She refers to people not wishing again to build with brick. So there's some complex ideas around buildings being paper and buildings not being so rigid and perhaps not so divisive, not so involved with money perhaps. She's constantly invoking this image of the light shining through. In that stanza round about line 20, we get the sun shines through. Sun is illuminating things, so it seems to be a good quality of paper that sun shines through. She plays on this a little later when she comes into, but let the daylight break at line 29. Let the daylight break. This is very much a biblical image, or a image of the creation story. Let there be light. So letting the paper be illuminated and the light shining through things. So that middle section, very much about her analysis of how paper is used in the world and how perhaps it could be, with that stanza about if buildings. And then at line 25 we get a very big shift to the architect. And for me here, this architect is a reference to God, or a supernatural being who is looking over humanity. Some religions refer to God as the great architect. So here we're building on the metaphor of using paper, but really thinking about paper as approaching that end line, turning into skin. So an architect, someone we're transitioning from the building idea, we're picking up on that imagery again, but then moving to fashioning a community and ultimately fashioning people and fashioning humanity. An architect could use all this, place layer over layer. We know that the epidermis, the skin, and the tissue in the skin, made up of biological tissues, is layered over and over. Again, we've got that word luminous, script over numbers, over line. So referring back to that initial stanza and the idea of scripts in religious books, and the importance of writing in creation and creating things. We've got also capitals and monoliths. We want daylight to break through those capitals and monoliths, through the shapes that pride can make. And here, to me, it's a very clear reference to mankind, humankind, and pride. Pride being the sin of Satan, the sin of Lucifer, who turned into Satan. Pride being a sin that is forbidden in the Bible, one of the deadly sins. And it's as if pride, and perhaps this is again an attack on capitalism, that pride shapes things, the shapes that pride can have made. And so community and perhaps the people in society having got out of control, having become too proud, having gone a little bit too far, and building capitals and monoliths which are very sturdy and almost aggressive, unlike the paper that she is thinking about buildings could be made of, which would be much more easy to deal with. They fall away on a sigh, they shift in the wind, they are much more natural. Paper, after all, is a natural substance. And perhaps here I'm talking about brick and capitals and monoliths. It is rather this romantic idea that we have had through so many of these poems, that the power of industry and the power of money are trampling on the more beautiful things that exist in life and the more natural things that are at one with the world around them. She then talks about this grand design, the grand design with living tissue. And again, these terms, the grand design and the design of humanity, hark back to creation stories and creation ideas that many world religions have developed. We have this idea that living tissue, and there is a very clear reference to people's skin and living tissue, raise a structure never meant to last. So a reference here to mortality and to things not lasting and being transient. But again, this reference back to smooth and stroked and thinned to be transparent. So there is a delicacy to humanity, and we are perhaps like paper. We are designed to be light and at one with nature, transient. We should let the light shine through. These are all very important religious images that have developed over thousands of years. And here, to me, Imtiaz Dharker is saying that paper is a beautiful metaphor for how we should be and how we should treat our lives and our environment. And we should be careful not to build things too solidly. May that be metaphorically in terms of relationships, or physically in terms of our buildings and our houses, and that we should not be encouraged to be enveloped by pride and be driven by pride. That last line, which comes after the quatrains on its own, is very powerful. It's turned into your skin. She uses that possessive determiner there, your skin, to address the audience. And she's making it very personal, making us think about how we inhabit our skin, how our skin is very delicate, how life is fragile, and how this paper that she's been exploring all the ways that it can be used, all the life, the religious imagery of it, the way we can use it in our lives. I mean, it's become kind of part of our skin. So she moves across from the very concrete image, the very easy image of paper being powerful, it can be written on, but also it's delicate and fragile, to translate that into something about humanity itself and about the very tissue that our communities are made from. I hope that's helped you think in different ways about tissue. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you again with some more GCSE poetry.